Develi, Turkey, 1986. It speaks volumes that even amongst the countless horrors and atrocities I've been forced to bear witness to, this day in particular still lives on in my mind the most. The images of that encounter, of her, branded into my memory, my own body subconsciously warning me to avoid such an encounter again at all costs, out of sheer survival instinct. Voidance Squad Echo was ordered to urgently gear up for deployment in Develi. The designated field agent had been assigned to investigate the cause of a spontaneous uptick in localized tremors in the area, particularly occurring in the dark of night. Around the same time, though unclear if at all related, locals had begun discovering livestock mutilated in large bloody piles, each maimed with what appeared to be impossibly large bestial claw or fang marks. It only took the field agent 2 days to stumble upon large hoofprints a few miles from town. The agent described these marks to be at least 8 meters in diameter. In typical HQ fashion, they ordered the agent to press for further evidence. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, he discovered a small hill nearby, which looked to be an opportune landmark on which to set up camp. However, just as he began to drop his bags on the ground, the hill shuddered. He stood frozen, the hairs on the back of his neck immediately rising. This was no hill, but the target of his investigation. A Goliath, he had described in his report, lay before him, coated in a thick, dark fur, curled into a ball, resting. The agent quietly collected his gear before silently pacing backward, one slow footstep after the other away from the beast. After what seemed like an eternity, the agent finally turned and began sprinting away from the black mass, back toward the far distant safety of town. The agent neared town as dawn began to approach. What was odd, however, was that when the agent turned around, that hill appeared to be just as close as when he had begun his mad sprint many hours earlier. After reaching the outskirts of Develi early morning, he once again checked back the way he had come. The hill was now closer than before. Moreover, the hill was now close enough that it could be seen to be swaying slightly. The black mass was moving. It was following his tracks. This was when the field agent contacted HQ for immediate Voidance Squad deployment. By the time our helicopter convoy began to descend upon the town, only a single mile separated the settlement and the colossal beast. Seeing the beast from this vantage point, it was clear the agent's report had not done the beast justice. It was truly enormous. A monstrous, horned, goat-like demon striding steadily on its hind hoofed legs toward town. Each step caused the nearby earth to seemingly jump, dirt and debris being launched into the air in reaction to the beast's enormous weight. The residents had already scrambled out of town in a panic, no plan or strategy other than to put as much distance as possible between them and the monstrosity. They'd all seen far too much, and would later need to be rounded up for repatriation. After dropping our squads off near the outskirts of town, squarely within the beast's path, our helis returned to air to launch a mounted turret assault against the beast. The furious rattling of a dozen Gatling guns pouring thousands of rounds into the beast was music to our ears. But this moment of hope was quickly shattered. The guns had not even put a scratch on the beast, its thick, greasy fur providing an utterly impenetrable barrier. The beast paused its march temporarily, turning its intense gaze toward the helicopters flying above. Crouching low, the monster lifted a spherical lump of dirt and stone out of the earth, before suddenly launching the terrain toward the air fleet with impossible speed. The pilots never had time to react. Over half of the fleet were eviscerated instantly, torn into shreds of mangled metal and flesh. The remaining aircraft retreated to a safe distance, lest they suffer the same fate. On the ground, in reaction to the devastation above, we had begun launching our own ranged assault to try and repel the beast. It was a futile gesture, and merely reminded the beast to continue its march forward. Our lines quickly broke, many squad members fleeing along the same path the townsfolk had taken earlier to escape the beast's irrepressible advance. As I grabbed my radio to request HQ launch a tactical strike, a strange voice on the other side spoke before I even had the chance. The voice said that no ordnance support would be provided, as it would be completely ineffective. Instead, an executioner had been summoned. This message left myself and my remaining squad mates as shaken as the image of the mountainous beast in front of us. In each of our many years of service, we had never actually thought to witness an executioner. We'd only heard the countless rumors that quietly circulated. Many thought they weren't real, that they were only a tale told to put the fear of God into new recruits, to ensure they towed the line. Others believed them to be anomalies that HQ captured and domesticated for deployment. In all these rumors, no one had ever claimed to actually witness an executioner themselves. The sparse remains of Echo Squad fell back into town and began to ascend a church tower to gain a better view of the surrounding area. The beast had now reached the outskirts of town, lazily swatting entire brick buildings out of its path. Residents who had made the choice to hide in their homes rather than flee were quickly revealed. The beast grabbed these terrified figures one by one and devoured them whole. There was truly nothing we could do for them. It was at this moment each of us felt an enormous pressure forming in our stomachs, which rapidly spread to our entire bodies. It caused us to involuntarily tense, the air around us suddenly feeling like it weighed tons. As I painfully strained to look around for the source of the disturbance, I saw her. A tall, slender woman hovered 100 meters above us. She wore a flowing robe and carried with her nothing but a long blade of some kind, sheathed in an enormous scabbard at her hip. Looking up at her from this angle, it was difficult to discern details of her appearance, with her mostly being silhouetted in shadow. But it was clear that she was strikingly beautiful, and completely, utterly horrifying. The fear of the beast was understandable. It was a formidable, enormous, unstoppable behemoth that appeared to arise directly from the depths of hell itself. It was natural to fear the beast, but the fear for the executioner was something else entirely. While she herself appeared to be but a human woman, she was infinitely more terrifying than the beast. There was something about her. She was unnatural, a being we simply could not comprehend. She was wrong. She was out of place in this world. Our minds simply refused to believe that something like her could even exist. The executioner seemed to take a deep breath in. As she held her breath, the world around us seemed to slow to a crawl. For a brief moment, I felt her gaze turn toward us. In that moment, I experienced a primal fear that made my entire body feel cold and hollow. In that moment, I realized how utterly powerless I was in this world. Her vision snapped back to the monster, and she released her breath, blinking out of existence. The beast stood completely still, transfixed. I soon realized that in the distance, the woman had suddenly appeared behind the monster, slowly sheathing her blade. She had not disappeared, but seemingly launched herself at the behemoth in the blink of an eye. The beast suddenly exploded in a gory pile of thousands, if not millions, of tiny pieces of viscera. Every part of the monster had been finely, evenly sliced in a masterful display. The explosion of meat scattered far and wide around the town outskirts, engulfing the broken buildings that previously surrounded the beast. By the time the viscera settled, the executioner had fortunately gone. The feeling of pressure had gone with her too, enabling us to move once more and begin providing emergency rescue and medical services for the remaining townsfolk. While I, along with the squad as a whole, felt immense relief that the executioner had departed, even then I knew that this encounter would leave me with a permanent scar. What was worse, however, was that deep down, I had an enduring feeling that this was not the only time I would have the misfortune of encountering an executioner.